Poor black single dad helps twin girls for one night, unaware their father is a millionaire. That line wasn't splashed across a headline the night it began. It lived quietly in the chest of a man who had learned to breathe through hardship and keep moving. His name was Eli Turner. He was 37, black, a night shift cleaner at the glossy Fontvale, Miami, and a father to two brave little girls, Zuri, 11, who read everything and asked why about everything else, and Faith, 7, who had laughed less since her mom passed but still pressed dandelions into books and said they were sunshine. You could save. It was 2:47 a.m. when Eli checked his cheap watch, the way he always checked it before pushing his cart past the brass fixtures. The sharp smell of glass cleaner still clung to his jacket. His knees ached the way old rain aches in the bones. His radio crackled. "Turner, motion on the rooftop garden again. Probably the wind. Take a look." He said, "Copy," even though he hated the roof. It was so high the city looked like a map, and the ocean looked like a mouth. On the way, he tapped his pockets the way soldiers do. Flashlight, bandage kit, spare batteries, a small key ring his daughters had decorated with plastic beads that spelled love. The service elevator hummed. In the steel reflection, he saw his face the way life had carved it. Tired lines, soft eyes anyway. He unlocked the roof and stepped into warm, heavy Miami night. Lights from the city lay below like spilled stars. Palms shifted, their leaves silver at the edges. For a second there was only the wind. Then he heard it. Small breath, a caught sob, the noise of someone trying to be invisible and failing because fear trembles out of you like heat. Eli moved slow, not because he was afraid, but because he knew fear made people quick and mistakes made people bleed. "Hey," he said, soft as a lullaby. "I'm friendly. I work here. It's okay." The movement came from behind a planter near the east overlook. Two shapes, small as birds, pressed into the shadows. Twin girls. Their dresses were fancy in the way rich people make children look like porcelain dolls. One had a rip at the hem. One had a streak of soot across her cheek like a thumbprint of the night. Their eyes were huge. "Are you lost?" he asked. The girl on the left shook her head hard. The one on the right whispered, "We're hiding." Her voice was thin, like it had been used up already this evening. "From who?" he said. They didn't answer. The wind shifted. On the glass railing ahead of them, a tiny red dot crawled like an insect. Eli didn't think, his body did. "Down!" he snapped, voice turning steel. "Flat on your bellies now. Roll behind the planter." The girls obeyed without question, and that told him something about the world they lived in. The glass behind where their small heads had been exploded quietly, a spiderweb blossoming with the soft cough of a suppressed shot. Eli threw himself down, pulling the planter to widen the shield, counting angle and timing out of old habit. Shooter across the street, lower building, southeast corner, maybe 15th floor, maybe 14th. Wind from the ocean, right to left. Professional, not a random monster. A planned one. He pulled the girls close. "We going to move like we're playing a game," he whispered. "You copy me. We stay low. I'm a wall. You are shadows." The one with the soot streak nodded like she'd been in this game before. Her twin grabbed Eli's sleeve and didn't let go. "Names?" he asked, because names make you human in a night that wants to turn you into target and noise. "I'm Aria," said Sootstreak. "She's Ivy." "Okay, Aria. Okay, Ivy. I'm Eli. We're walking backward to that door. When I say duck, you duck." Another silent cough. A chip of concrete stung his cheek. He tasted grit. The door to the service hall was 10 yards away and might as well have been a mile. He moved when the wind gusted and the fronds shivered, using motion as a curtain. He kept his body large and forward, his shoulders a shield. People will tell you hero stories like they are loud. Mostly, they are not. Mostly, they are decisions in slow steps and teeth pressing into quiet lips. At the door, another shot kissed the frame. Eli hauled the handle, shoved the girls into the fluorescent hum of the corridor, and slammed the steel. He didn't trust the hotel channel. Too many ears, too many mouths, and some of those mouths smiled at people who had never done a day of honest work in their lives. He pulled his personal phone. There were only 3 numbers in favorites: Zuri, Faith, Mrs. Alvarez from downstairs. He added a 4th 2 months ago when a former coworker from his short security stint told him, "If you ever smell something that feels like burned money, call me." He hit that number. "It's Turner," he said. Rooftop. Suppressed fire. 2 minors. Shooter Southeast 15 at the Nova office. This is not play. The woman on the line said, "We're listening." "Get off the roof." "I'm already off," he said, and hung up because long calls get people killed. He led Arya and Ivy through the basement maze, laundry steam hissing like ghosts, racks of linen the size of walls, the chemical room sharp with bleach that bit your eyes. He picked a storage closet that had only 1 door, no window, and a vent high enough a grown person couldn't crawl through. He knelt so he was small like them. "You know how to breathe quiet?" he asked. They nodded. He passed a bottle of water. They sipped like they'd been told to be careful with everything. "Who are you hiding from?" He tried again. Arya glanced at her sister. "Bad men," she whispered. "They took our nanny in the garage. We ran. We hid behind boxes. We took the stairs to the roof because the sign said, 'Exit,' and we thought exits are safe. The nanny screamed once and then it stopped." Tears filled Ivy's eyes but didn't fall. She held them like stones. "Do you know a number to call? A parent? A family member?" Ivy nodded and handed him a card from the pocket sewn into her dress. It was a heavy white card that tried too hard not to be a flag. Gideon Hart. No title. No address. Just a number and the kind of quiet that money buys. Eli's chest sank. He knew the name. Everybody who skimmed the finance pages knew the name. The man who built a payments empire and seemed to move money like weather. Eli dialed. It rang too long. A man answered, voice too steady to be calm. "Who is this?" "My name is Eli Turner," he said. "I work at Fontvale. I have Arya and Ivy. They're alive." The air on the line changed shape. For a second, it sounded like a person trying not to break. Then the man said, "Where are you?" Eli didn't say. "Your roof just took fire," he said instead. "Your garage saw a snatch attempt. I've got them safe for now, but I don't trust my building. Whoever wants them knew the hotel." Silence. Then, "You trust me?" Gideon asked. "No, sir," Eli said simple. "Not yet. What do you need?" "Time, and eyes you control that aren't rotten." "You'll have both," Gideon said. "Stay with them." "I'm coming." "Don't come here," Eli said. "You are a lighthouse. Lighthouses draw storms." Another silence, shorter. "You're a father," Gideon said, not a question. "Yes, then you know. Keep them breathing. I'll earn your trust." The hotel manager called Eli's radio 3 times. He didn't answer. The head of security, Victor Lang, texted him. "Report to office now." Eli didn't. He remembered the way Victor shook hands with the wrong kind of men in the lobby, the ones with suits that looked melted onto their bodies and shoes that never touched rain. Victor had eyes like a stalled elevator. He had words like policy and liability, ready for every time Eli asked for an extra guard in the garage during charity galas. Eli turned off the radio. He turned his phone to airplane mode except for one narrow app still whispering, his coworker's line that rode on a tunnel of its own. He set the girls on stacked cases of paper towels, handed them a bag of vending machine pretzels from his cart, and said, "Listen, I have 2 girls at home. I promise you I will fight like I would fight for them." Ivy finally let one tear fall. It made a clean track through the soot on her cheek. "Where is home?" Arya asked, as if knowing route lines might let her breathe. "Little Haiti," he said. "A walk-up that shakes when the train passes, and a neighbor who cooks food that smells like love." Arya nodded like train shake was something big and safe. The door handle turned. Eli's whole body moved without moving. Weight back, shoulder turned, hand already on the short wrench he kept in the cart because sometimes machines broke and sometimes people did too. The door opened 2 inches, then stopped because Eli had slid the mop bucket in as a wedge. "Eli," a voice whispered. Mara, the laundry's supervisor. Short, strong arms, a heart like a church. "You in there?" "Who's with you?" he asked. No one. He cracked the door. Her face was tight. Security is sweeping halls. Victor is angry in that way he gets when he's pretending not to be angry. Police are upstairs, not the kind who ask questions, the kind who keep cameras pointed the wrong way. You want out? You go now. Eli squeezed her shoulder. You never saw me. She met his eyes. You're a good man, she said. Hurry. Eli looked at the girls. We take a field trip. He found 2 staff hoodies from Lost and found and pulled them over the fancy dresses. He tucked their hair into laundry caps. He loaded the cart, the one with sheets piled high, and slid the twins between. You're now invisible, he said. Invisible is the safest kind of famous. Arya smiled from under cotton. Ivy held his sleeve again. They took the staff hall, then the freight elevator, then the loading dock with the clanging chains and the smell of diesel. Outside, the alley yawned black, the mouth of a place people pretend not to see. A black SUV idled at the curb like a comma waiting to turn into a period. 2 men leaned on it, all bone and angles. They looked up without moving. Eli saw the way they took inventory. A cart, a man, a pile of sheets, no noise. He felt the way the alley decided things. He walked like he belonged to a different world. He didn't hurry. He whistled badly. He bumped the cart on the cracked concrete. The men didn't move. The SUV's engine murmured. The twins were so still he thought they weren't breathing. 3 steps past the SUV, a cat knocked over a bottle. The smaller man reached to steady it like he cared about mess, and in that sideways glance Eli saw the tattoo peeking above his collar. 3 diamonds and an arrow. He had seen that in a report once when he still tried to be a security guard who brought notes to bosses. Sebian Syndicate. He didn't look at it long. He didn't need to. He turned the corner, heart knocking on his ribs like a neighbor who had lost a key. At the end of the alley, an old woman sold empanadas from a cart that glowed like a small sun. Senor Turner, she said, because this was Miami and names live in the air. You want? I want you to smile at me like I'm just hungry, he said. She grinned, took his 5, gave him 2 empanadas and a nod toward the street where the bus hissed and sighed at a stop. Go, she said. Go now. They rode 2 stops east, 3 stops north, then got off at a corner where the city wasn't trying to impress anyone. A laundromat with chairs that pinched, a bodega that sold mangoes the size of hearts, a church with a sign that said, God is not mad at you. Eli's building stood tired and brave. Mrs. Alvarez was already at the door in her robe and slippers, hair wrapped in a scarf like a crown. I saw you on the camera, she said, pointing to the cheap device Eli had screwed above the stairs last month. Who are these angels? Friends, he said. Can you keep Zuri and Faith in your place for a few minutes? Don't say my apartment out loud. She understood more than he said. Of course, she opened a hand to the twins. Ivy slid behind Eli's leg, shy in danger the way some kids are. Arya stepped out and offered a hand. I'm Arya, she said, because manners matter even when the world doesn't. Mrs. Alvarez's whole face softened. I am Tia to every child who climbs these stairs, she said. Come, be loved quickly. Eli's apartment smelled like the candles he still burned for peace and the cinnamon toast his girls had made before school. It was clean in the way that says, this is the one place I can make sense. On the fridge were drawings, Zuri's robots with kind eyes, Faith's houses with giant doors for friends. On the table sat a photo where a woman laughed into the wind, eyes shut, head back, Naomi, gone 3 years now and still here in every corner. Eli locked the door, slid the chain, pulled the small chest from under the couch. He wasn't a man of guns. He was a man of plans. He had an emergency phone, a first aid kit, a radio that could pull in weird stations, and a stamped envelope that said, If I'm gone in Zuri's serious handwriting. Papers, guardianship letters, things he never wanted to need. He didn't take the envelope. He took the phone. It connected without permission. Eli, the woman from before asked. Yeah, you're home. I'm somewhere, he said. We see 2 SUVs circling your block, she said. They're testing doors. They won't like mine, he said. And the small pride in his voice was because he had learned how to bolt wood to cinder block and how to wedge a chair under a knob and how to make a cheap place hard to enter. "Who are you?" he asked. "You called me from nowhere and now you see my block." "My name is Sana," she said. "I'm part of Mr. Hart's private team. You don't have to trust me. Just let me help you help them." Eli's jaw worked. "Your employer is the father?" "Yes." "Then he's also the reason this is happening." There was a long inhale on the line. "Sometimes," Sana said, "power is a boat that makes waves even when it sits still. Tonight we use the boat to pull people out." Eli looked through the peephole. A man stood on the sidewalk pretending to watch his phone. Another leaned against the corner. The third sat on his stoop, too relaxed to be a neighbor. "You want me to wait?" Eli asked. "No," Sana said. "You move. Right now." He moved like a father who understands that staying still can be the worst kind of trap. He dialed Mrs. Alvarez. "I need Zuri and Faith," he said. "We're going to go on a sleepover." "I packed a bag," she said, because she had been a mother and a grandmother and a whole neighborhood's emergency kit. "And I told Zuri to act like we're going to the movies." In 2 minutes, his girls slid in the door. Zuri's eyes were bright and sharp. She was a kid who saw patterns before they formed lines. Faith stood with her bunny backpack and her lip caught in her teeth. When Faith saw the twins, she moved like gravity pulled her. "Hi," she said, simple, holy. Ivy held her hand the way a drowning person holds a rope. Arya stood straighter. "We're guests," she told Zuri like she wanted to get the rule right. "We won't be trouble." "Your family," Zuri said after a beat because she understood triage of the heart. Eli crouched to eye level. "We're going to Grandma June's," he told his daughters. Grandma June wasn't blood. She was Naomi's friend who lived by the bay and cooked pancakes like prayers. "We'll take the long way." "Is it bad men again?" Zuri asked. Eli nodded once. "Okay," she said with that calm he wished she could trade for a little ignorance. "We've practiced." They had, in small, careful drills that felt like games because fear that stays too long becomes a disease. Faith said, "Can Bunny come?" "Bunny always comes," Eli said. They left through the back, down the fire escape that thumped and groaned. Sana's voice whispered directions. "Left at the gate. Pause. There's a man at the end of the alley. He's looking north. Cross fast. Now." It felt like a video game with the stakes of breath. They reached Mr. Liu's auto, a garage where the owner owed Eli a favor from one winter when Eli had loaned him $50 and never asked for it back. The bay door slid just enough and the dark swallowed them. Liu's eyes were moons. "You bring me 6 kids?" He whispered. 4, Eli said. "But I get nervous and count them twice." Liu grinned because humor is armor. "Take the tow truck," he said. "Nobody watches a tow truck. It moves through the city like a ghost." Eli squeezed his shoulder. "I'll get it back with gas." "I know," Liu said. "Go." The tow truck rattled like a joke, big and loud in a way that turned into camouflage. Eli drove like he was old and tired and had nowhere to be. The kids lay flat in the back under the bench seat, a blanket over them. Zuri kept whispering facts to calm the air. "Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? And the largest library has over 170 million items." Faith leaned close to Ivy so their shoulders touched every time the truck hit a bump. Arya asked Eli, "Are we going to your real mom?" "She's gone," Eli said. "But we're going to a woman who knows how to hold people the way moms hold people." Sana said, 2 blocks ahead, unmarked sedan. "Turn right." He did. They reached Grandma June's quiet street where the trees arched and the air smelled like dew. June opened the door in a robe and slippers, eyes already wet because she was a person who cried easily and loved hard. "Children," she said, a benediction. "House rules," Eli told the twins and his girls. "Shoes off, voices soft, no window peeks, we stay together." "Like a school field trip," Faith said. "Exactly like that," Eli said. The house was old wood and quilts and a kitchen that had healed a lot of nights. Eli set the kids around the table and made cocoa because he didn't know how to fix the world, but he knew cocoa puts sugar where courage comes from. He washed the soot from Ivy's cheek. Under it she looked even smaller. Arya traced the grain in the table with her finger like a map. "Who wants you?" Eli asked softly, not because he didn't have a guess, but because truth told in your own voice strengthens the bones. Our father's partner, Arya said. Victor Lang, Ivy whispered, and the name made something in Eli's chest go very still because it was the same name as the hotel head of security. He kept telling Daddy we had to go stay with him while Daddy finished his big deal. He said bad people were watching us at home. He said he'd hide us. Our nanny said we shouldn't. She said her stomach felt wrong when Victor smiled. So he smiled and tried to take you, Eli said, and both girls nodded. 2 small lanterns in a storm. Eli's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. At the curb. Eli looked through the peephole. A man stood there alone, hands open, no coat. He had the posture of someone who knew he could make the world lean toward him, and the face of someone who had forgotten how to ask. Eli opened the door chain-latched. "Mr. Hart," he said. The man's jaw worked like he wasn't used to having to swallow anything he didn't choose. Gideon Hart stared past Eli and saw his girls, his twins. Something in him cracked. He pressed a hand to his chest as if a rib had broken and he needed to keep the pieces together. "Arya, Ivy," he said, voice low. The twins ran and wrapped his legs the way trees hold onto the earth in storms. He didn't kneel. He folded, and that was different. It was humility, not performance. Eli watched how he touched them, his palm on the back of each small head, the way thumbs moved like counting blessings. "Thank you," Gideon said to Eli, looking at him like the rest of the room disappeared. "You kept them breathing." "We're not done," Eli said. "Not while your partner's hunting. And not while my block is warming with men in cars." Gideon nodded, and power arranged itself behind his eyes. "Sana," he said to the air. "Full lockdown for June's house, get me a clean car, and bring the receipts." "Already moving," Sana said from nowhere. He looked back at Eli. "You have children," he said again, like the fact mattered more than any title. "2 daughters," Eli said. "I'm sorry," Gideon said quietly, "for dragging your life into mine." Eli shook his head. "The tide dragged us both. We just swam." They moved to June's living room. June put blankets over knees and moved mugs closer the way old women do war. Gideon's phone lit like a city from all the calls. He silenced it. "Victor Lang," he said. "I hired him 5 years ago after a breach. He was cheap for his resume. That should have been my first warning. He saved me money by saving me risk, or so I thought. I was wrong." He ran a hand over his face, slow. "I built a company that lets a fruit seller in Lagos take payment from a buyer in Lima in 2 seconds. But I forgot people move value through hearts, not just wires. Victor thinks money is the only language. He's fluent. He wants control. He thinks if he controls my children, he controls me. He is right." The room felt too small for the size of that truth. Eli said, "So we go first." Gideon's head snapped up. We, Eli said. "Because my daughters are asleep down the hall and your trouble is brushing its teeth in my neighborhood." Gideon studied Eli with a kind of shocked respect. "Why would you help me?" he asked. Eli's mouth tilted. "You know the answer." Gideon nodded. "Because you're a father." Sana arrived with a car that didn't look important. Tan, bland, the kind of car grandmothers drive to church. She also brought a case with gear that looked like someone had ordered peace of mind from a catalog. Audio recorders, tie clip cams, a button that was not a button. "We don't need guns," Eli said. "Guns break stories. We need light. Light is cruel to men like Victor." Gideon sat forward, elbows on knees. "Victor is hosting a pre-deal celebration tonight on a yacht," he said. "He thinks he's sealing an investor round. He thinks fear moves money. He invited the kind of men who clap when sharks eat. If he sees my girls show up anywhere near the marina, he will try to take them in front of cameras and call it safety. If I go alone, he will trap me with a dozen well-tailored alibis. If the police go, the yacht will be empty, and someone will leak that I made a false report." He turned to Eli. "What would you do?" Eli was quiet for 3 breaths. He looked at his hands. The knuckles were nicked from life. "I would make him talk somewhere he thinks he is a king, and I would make the world listen," he said. Sana's eyes flashed. "We can wire the yacht," she said. "We can turn glasses into microphones and flowers into eyes." "We can also turn plain men into truths," June said, surprising them all. She stood, steady as a lighthouse. "You, Gideon, will panic because you are a father. You, Eli, will not, because you are used to fear and know how to hold it. Take him with you, not as muscle, as witness." They dressed the plan in simple clothes. Gideon would arrive at the marina as the host who isn't hosting. Sana would seed the yacht with devices through a caterer who owed her a favor from a long-ago visa problem. Eli would go as a late-night cleaner sent to deal with a spill on the lower deck. Victor, greedy and theatrical, would try to corner Gideon on the top deck at midnight, as men like Victor always do when they want to look down on the world. Eli would be near enough to hear and far enough to be ignored. Sana would be in a van with screens that made the walls look like waves. June would hold 4 sleeping children in a house that smelled like cinnamon and say prayers in every language she knew. The marina at night is different than the marina by day. It glows. It pretends water is a sheet of obsidian only rich shoes can touch. The Yvette floated like a slice of frost, all lights and smooth music. Men with smiles that never reached their eyes laughed too loud. Women wore dresses that said, "I am a story you cannot buy," and shoes that said you already tried. Gideon stepped on board. He looked like money that had remembered its soul. Victor arrived with cologne that went before him and a suit that wanted applause. His smile cut the air. "Gideon," he said, arms flung like a televangelist. "You made it, brother." He hugged Gideon and patted him like he owned the rhythm of his heart. "Where are the girls?" he asked low. "Safe," Gideon said. "With me?" Victor's eyes flashed. It was quick, a flint spark. "Of course," he said brightly. "Let's toast to safety." Below deck, Eli pushed a mop across a floor that did not need mopping and let the music throb through his bones. He passed a vase and slid 2 fingers on its rim as if to twist it straight. The camera inside blinked to life. He leaned to pick up a napkin and switched on a plant. He rinsed a glass and brought the mic in the stem to breath. He moved the way janitors move when the rich are near. Quiet, unimportant, useful. That is a kind of camouflage the world hands to the invisible. Eli had learned to wear it like armor. He climbed the narrow stairs to the top deck because the spill was near the rail. He kept his head bowed. He listened. Victor had cornered Gideon at the bow, the city behind them like a promise some people think was written to them alone. "We're brothers," Victor crooned. "I've protected you from monsters you will never meet. I make calls so your girls can eat strawberries in winter." "You tried to take them," Gideon said, and there was nothing civilized left in his voice. "Because you don't know how to keep them safe," Victor snapped, then smiled again, remembering the room. "You have enemies. Men who believe your company made them small. I know their names. I keep their names under my shoe. But your softness," he flicked his wrist toward Gideon's chest, "it is a door they can walk through." "Like you," Gideon said. Victor's face tilted. The angle said, "Careful. You know what cracks men," Victor murmured, stepping closer. "Not bullets. Not bankruptcy. The idea that they failed their children. Do you want to feel that crack?" He said it like he was offering a cigar. Eli's jaw tightened. He checked his distance. The mic and the flower beside Victor's elbow caught every syllable. Sana whispered in Eli's ear. "We have him." Gideon leaned in. "Are you threatening my kids on my boat?" "My boat," Victor corrected softly, and the lie told the truth. "Everything is my boat, because I keep maps of currents you refuse to learn. I tell storms where to go." He laughed gently. "Bring them to me. Let me hide them. When the deal closes, I'll return them, and we'll be brothers forever." He said, "Hide the way hunters say bait." Gideon didn't punch him. He did something harder. He said, clear and even, "No." The word fell like a stone into the party. Victor's smile slipped. "Don't be dramatic," he hissed. "You think you can go to the police? You think you can cry on some reporter's shoulder? I own the mouths that make stories." "You don't own mine," Gideon said, "and you don't own his." He slid his eyes to Eli, and Victor followed them and saw the janitor who wasn't a janitor. For one beat, Victor's face showed the boy he had been, the one who learned that winning felt like not being hurt. Then he smiled again, wider, crueler. "You bringing witnesses?" "Cute." He raised his hand. Two men from the bar stepped forward, shoulders stiffening. Eli's fingers flexed on the mop handle. Sana's whisper burned in his ear. "Hold," she said. "Keep him talking 10 more seconds." "Victor," Gideon said loudly, turning so his profile faced the crowd, "why don't you tell everyone here what you did to my driver in the garage tonight when she refused to hand over my children?" Conversations died. Laughter stalled. The music kept trying. "Excuse me?" Victor chuckled. Gideon took a step forward. "Did you pay men to take my daughters by force? Did you hire them through a shell that used to buy guards for a foreign casino? Did you think my love could be priced?" He said it like the room was a witness stand. The flower mic breathed every word. Sana pushed send. Somewhere, a server began dumping a file to 100 email addresses that start news. Phones buzzed like bees. Heads bent. Faces changed shape. Victor lunged. Not slow, not polite. Fast, the way fear is fast. He grabbed Gideon's lapel and hissed, "Do you want to lose everything?" Eli moved. Not with a punch, with a step. He slid the mop between their legs and twisted. Victor stumbled and reached for the rail. Gideon stepped back. Eli put his body where the rich man's anger needed a target. "Sir," Eli said loud for the crowd, "you're in the way of my cleaning." The absurdity bumped the mood off its track. A woman laughed, shocked and delighted at the janitor cracking the party's surface. Phones filmed now. Victor tried to recover his charm. "Apologies," he said, hands up like a magician yielding a dove. "We're all overexcited. Let's not make scenes." "You already made one," Gideon said. "Tonight is the ending." Blue lights unfurled on the dark water like ribbons. Police boats. Federal jackets on decks. The party air thinned. Some men with pocket squares became smaller. Some women with straight spines became taller. Eli stood with the mop like a staff because sometimes symbols matter. After, statements poured out like rain. Crew, caterers, guests who didn't like the way Victor looked at them last quarter. Victor protested. "I'm a protector," he cried. "I was saving those children." But Light had already done what Light does. Gideon's girls slept in June's bed, arms thrown overhead like surrender flags. Zuri built a blanket fort to make Faith feel safe and pretended she was scared too, so Faith could be brave for someone. Ivy whispered, "Do we have to go back to the big house?" And when Gideon, exhausted, said, "No, not if you don't want to," her whole face changed like sunrise had touched it. Arya asked, "Can we have pancakes in the morning?" June said, "Only if you want 3. Sana texted Eli, "He's in custody. Charges stick. There will be noise. Hold your ground." Eli turned his phone face down and watched his daughters breathe. Morning is kind when it comes after a night like that. It pours gold on the broken pieces and they look like art. Gideon made coffee wrong and burned his tongue and said he was fine and wasn't. He stood on June's small back steps and stared at the bay like it had answers hidden under the skin. Eli stepped out and stood next to him. They didn't talk for a minute because silence between men can be friendship. Then Gideon said, "You could have walked away." Eli shook his head. "No," he said. "Because of what you said? Because you're a father?" Gideon asked. "Because I'm a neighbor," Eli said. "This city keeps trying to pull us apart into gated islands. But when one wave hits, it hits all our doorways." He glanced inside where 4 little girls had invented a complicated game that involved spoons and hair bows and 2 plastic dinosaurs. Also, my kids were in the water whether I liked it or not. Gideon laughed, a surprise that turned into a cough. "I owe you more than money," he said. "You owe me an apology if you try to pay me with money," Eli said, and Gideon's head snapped, surprised at being told the truth in a world where truth bowed to him. "Then what can I give you?" he asked. Eli's eyes softened. "A job that doesn't make me choose between dignity and dinner would be nice," he said, honest and not ashamed. but not one that makes me a servant in a new suit. I got girls. I need hours that fit in a human day. I need a path that stairs, not a ladder you fall from." Gideon nodded like he was memorizing a blueprint. "Done," he said. "Write it down and sign it with me. No charity. A contract that protects you from me when I forget that power bends people." He paused, then added, quieter, "Zuri is brilliant." Eli smiled. "She is. I would like to." Gideon swallowed the bigness of what he was about to offer and made it small enough to not insult. "I would like to pay for her to eat all the books she wants," he said, "and for Faith to find every song she hasn't sung yet, and for your rent to stop shaking when the train passes." He held up a hand before Eli could refuse. "Not as payment. As investment in the net that saved my life." Eli looked at the man, saw the sincerity naked and a little scared. "Let's write it all down," he said. "In plain words. With an exit door." Gideon exhaled like the ocean finding the beach. "Plain words," he repeated. "Deal." News filled the day like water fills a jar. It found all the spaces. There were pictures of Victor being led in handcuffs, his smile finally cracked. There were shots of the yacht and a blurry still of a janitor with a mop standing like a strange knight. Someone put the words "Hero Custodian" on a banner. Eli hated it. June taped it to the fridge anyway because sometimes a little pride is medicine. People online argued about money and power and whether fathers should have to prove their love. Arya and Ivy read none of it. They drew houses where the doors were wider than the windows and wrote their names together in the corner. Zuri asked Sana to show her the devices. Sana did, patient, like she taught her own little brother long ago. Faith colored a card that said, "Thank you" on one side and "You are brave" on the other, and gave it to Eli, who cried in the bathroom where no one had to be brave for him. That evening, when the sky was the color of a bruised peach, Gideon came back from the meetings where men who think they own the world asked him if he was still the kind of king they liked. He said no, and a new world began to shimmer at the edges like a mirage trying to bloom into a lake. He sat at June's table and signed papers. He made phone calls that sounded like somebody sweeping the steps of a house he loved. He ate pancakes like they were a sacrament. He asked the twins if they wanted to see his apartment. Arya said, "Can Eli come?" Ivy said, "And Zuri and Faith?" Gideon did a thing rich men learn late or not at all. He said, "If their father says yes." Eli said, "If June comes too." They went, all of them, in a convoy of ordinary cars. Gideon's place was high and white and had windows that forgot glass is supposed to stop wind. Ivy paused at the threshold. "It smells like clean and not like people," she said. "We can fix that," Gideon said, meaning stay. Arya found the library and huffed at the shelves. "Books are not in the right order," she declared, and Gideon smiled like someone had told him his home could be better than perfect. Gideon offered Eli a job 2 days later. Not as a guard who disappears into suits, but as director of community safety for a new arm of his company, Heart Hands, that would fund smart cameras for small buildings that couldn't afford them, train night staff to see danger before it knocks, and build a hotline that cared. The contract had the hours Eli asked for. It paid more than enough without feeling like a leash. The benefits made June cry. There was a clause that said if Gideon's company ever forgot its purpose, Eli could leave with a gratuity that built him a house. Eli brought the contract to a lawyer Sana recommended who wore sneakers and spoke like a teacher. The lawyer crossed out a paragraph and added 2 more. Gideon signed the bad news-friendly version. "Plain words," he said. And an exit door, weeks passed. The glare faded and became story. Faith laughed more. Zuri built a city of books. Ivy and Arya started school where kids didn't look at their dresses first. Gideon came to Little Haiti with sleeves rolled and sat on the stoop. He learned neighbors' names. He learned the way Mrs. Alvarez yelled at boys who spit gum on the stairs and then fed them rice. He learned that sometimes the richest thing you can do is listen. There were bumps. There was a man in a black car who watched a little too long. There was a rumor Victor had friends who wanted to test if light really sticks. There was a day when Arya cried in the cereal aisle because a stranger said, "Aren't you those rich girls?" And the word "those" sounded like a door being closed. Each time, Eli stood like a tree and said, "We're here. We breathe." One night, months later, when the city steamed after rain and the smell of wet asphalt rose like a memory, Gideon knocked on Eli's door with a box. In the box was a pair of small scuffed sneakers. "I wore these when I was 8, he said, awkward. "My dad kept them in a closet like saving shoes could save time. I never knew why. Now I do." Eli took the box like a friend takes the thing that carries a story. "You keep them here?" Gideon asked, meaning not inside the closet of my power, but inside the map of your life. Eli nodded. "We keep them where we keep the dandelions faith pressed," he said. "Sunshine you can save." Gideon smiled, and the smile reached his eyes. Zuri peeked from the hallway and asked Gideon about compound interest because she was Zuri. Gideon sat cross-legged on the floor and explained interest with pennies and patience. Faith put a sticker of a star on his wrist and told him it meant you stayed. Ivy fell asleep on June's lap. Arya corrected the order of books on a shelf that didn't need correcting but felt right when she was done. People asked Eli for his story sometimes. He told it in simple pieces because simple holds. He said, "I'm a dad. 2 little girls. We got friends. One night we turned on a light. That's all?" Some reporter asked for an angle, something that could be the hook. "Hook is this," Eli said. "We did it. The janitor, the billionaire, the neighbor, the night staff, the woman in the laundry, the old lady at the empanada cart, the lawyer in sneakers, the kids who sat quietly when quiet saved lives. Everybody gripped a corner and the weight lifted." They wrote it up anyway with his face too big. He let it be because some kid cleaning a lobby at 3 a.m. might read it and think my hands matter. On the first anniversary of the night the roof broke, Gideon threw a party that wasn't about power. It was at the community center Eli convinced him to renovate. There were folding tables with flowers from the bodega. There was music from a speaker whose brand nobody knew. There were speeches that sounded like questions and answers at the same time. Zuri premiered a small app she coded that sent a "Hey, you okay?" nudge to night shift workers when cameras noticed them stop moving for too long. Faith sang in a tiny voice and the whole room leaned forward to hear. Ivy read a poem about doors you can open without keys. Arya announced the library now had the books in the right order and nothing had ever been more important. Sana danced with June and laughed like someone finally allowed to be the age she was. Near the end, Gideon took the microphone, and you could see his hands tremble. "I built something big," he said, "but the biggest thing I've ever touched is small. It is a kitchen table. It is children breathing while they sleep. It is a neighbor's door that opens at 3 a.m. and says, 'Come in.'" He stepped down and walked to Eli. He didn't raise his arms like a televangelist. He put a hand on Eli's shoulder the way a friend says, "I'm here." "Brother," he said, and this time the word meant equal. Eli nodded. "Brother," he said back, and the word meant I will tell you when you're wrong and I will stand when you fall. In the back, a banner hung crooked, the tape losing its grip in the humidity. It read, "Light wins." That night, after people left and tables were folded and children were carried to cars asleep and salt sticky from dancing, Eli stood under the street lamp and looked up. The roof of the city was black and full of tiny holes where hope shines through. He remembered the red dot crawling on glass, the quiet cough of a silenced weapon, the way twin girls tried to make themselves into shadows. He remembered how small hands feel when they clutch your sleeve like you are a planet, and they are the moon that refuses to drift away. He remembered the sentence the world had written on him that he had decided to overwrite. Poor, single, stuck. He touched the beaded keyring his daughters made, the one that spelled love. Letters a little chipped, colors a little faded. It glowed anyway. He walked home with Zuri and Faith between him, their steps a little off so they bumped into his legs and made him laugh. At the door, he paused to tuck one curl behind Faith's ear and to ask Zuri what book would keep the night company. Faith said, "Tell the story." Zuri groaned. "Again?" But she was smiling. Eli told the story the way he always told it, soft, slow, careful with facts, generous with grace. "It was late," he began, "and your dad was tired and the floor wasn't even that dirty. But the night whispered a thing. It whispered, "Go to the roof." And up there, two small stars were hiding because the dark was loud. Your dad became a wall. The stars became brave. And then the night changed. Faith whispered the next line because it was her favorite. And the man who seemed made of money learned that love is the only thing that spends forever. "Yes," Eli said. He kissed their foreheads like a seal on a letter. He closed the door after them, and the chain slid with a sound that, to him, would always mean safe. He thought, before sleep found him, about how titles change the same way names do. How a story can start like, "Poor black single dad helps twin girls for one night, unaware their father is a millionaire," and end like something bigger but also smaller, like a house where 4 girls sleep, and a neighbor bakes at dawn, and a man with a mop remembers that a mop can be a staff if you hold it like a promise. He whispered the title again in his mind, at the beginning and the end, the way a prayer starts and finishes with the same amen. Poor black single dad helps twin girls for one night, unaware their father is a millionaire. And then he fell asleep, the city breathing around him, the roof of the world holding, the light doing what it always does when we let it, finding a way in.